Antonio's Pizza Flipping Adventure by Sarah, Gabby, and Annika. It was Antonio's 7th birthday,
and his dad took him to a showing of America's Got Talent. It was the best day of his life so far. When the show had stopped for a commercial break, Antonio and his father went for a walk to find some dinner because they were famished. Being sheltered from junk food his entire life, Antonio saw the opportunity to sample his first ever piece of pizza. Antonio and his father took their pizza back to their seats and started chowing down. Antonio was so surprised that he had never been able to try this pizza before now. From the day forward, Antonio would eat one piece of pizza every day for the rest of his life and also owned a pizzeria. That night, he also vowed to himself that one day he would combine his passion for pizza with the experience of being a participant on America's Got Talent.
30 years later, Antonio's dream has come true. He now owns a pizza shop in New Orleans and performs in shows that display his natural-born talent of tossing a pizza in the air at amazing heights. During one of his shows, Antonio was spotted by an America's Got Talent scouting agent. Antonio was approached by the agent at the end of the show and was asked to audition to be on the show. Of course, since it was his lifelong dream, Antonio burst into tears and graciously accepted the offer.
The big day has finally come. Antonio is 5 minutes away from the most important day of his life. He is on the side of the stage with a knot in his stomach. As his name is called, Antonio nervously walks onto the stage, immediately being overwhelmed with the size of the crowd. Now here is one very important detail of Antonio's act. In order to add an element of suspense and danger, Antonio will be standing on an 115-foot platform and attempting to toss his specialty pizza into the air and get it to land in a hula hoop.
There is one very important detail of his act. In order to add an element of suspense and danger, he will be standing on an 115 feet tall platform and attempt to toss his specialty pizza into the air and get it to land in the hula hoop.
Antonio begins climbing the ladder to get to the top of the platform with his pizza in hand. When he finally reaches the top, he's practically shaking with anticipation. The music begins playing in the background as Antonio introduces himself to the crowd. Per Antonio's request, the crowd begins counting down from 10. Once the crowd reaches 0, Antonio throws his pizza up into the air and lets it fly, praying it will land in the hoop.
Antonio has reached his goal of having the pizza land in the hula hoop, while also accomplishing this in under 8 seconds, which was his previous personal record. Antonio manages to throw his specialty pizza into the air and make it land in a hula hoop in just 7.29 seconds, while standing on an 115-foot platform. Reveling in his success, Antonio burst into tears when the judges told him that he would advance to the next round. To Antonio, it seems like the world is moving in slow motion, but nevertheless, the act is so far playing out perfectly. However, once the pizza has been in the air for 2 seconds, it reaches its maximum point and unexpectedly flips over. Unfortunately, all of the toppings fall off the pizza, leaving it with just the dough. However, this does not faze the crowd because within the next 5 seconds, the dough successfully lands in the hula hoop. From then on, Antonio would go on to become the most famous pizza thrower in all the lands, while simultaneously owning the most successful pizzeria in the world. The end. So we chose our quadratic function to represent the path that the pizza took once Antonio threw it. So the x-axis in our case represents time in seconds, and the y-axis represents distance in feet. So as we said in our story, Antonio is standing on a platform that is 115 feet tall. So with this, we are assuming that Antonio is 6 feet tall, Since he's throwing the pizza with his hands, we assumed that his hands would be placed exactly 1 foot from the top of his head, so that means he'd be releasing the pizza from 120 feet in the air, which is also the y-intercept. Our vertex that we got when we solved the quadratic equation was 2 140, and in our story, the 2 represents the amount of time it took for the pizza to flip, and the 140 represents the height of the pizza when it flipped and when all the toppings fell off. So the 0 that we chose to use in our story was at the point 7.290, and this represents the amount of time it took for the pizza to land inside the hula hoop.